Started the stream. Here, I'll turn banter up on Discord for you guys. 1 second. All right, how's this, guys? I mean, why are all of the messages appearing twice? They don't appear to be appearing
Yeah,
twice for me, so I think
that
that's
look
a
fine
problem
for
for you.
me.
All right, so it's that time again. It's 7.6. Supports are stealing our kills again, so it's time to run it down mid with these patch notes. Um, Banter, you wanna? Oh wait, no, I'm gonna start us off. So I'm
Yeah,
I'm
he
I'm
starts off.
Jarsa. This is Banter. And
Hey,
first off, let's just talk about this Aatrox change. Like, what's Rito on about, dude? Like, they got no brains. They think Aatrox is good. Kappa? No. In all seriousness, these are just the added stats that Aatrox really needed. When they released him, because when they released his update, because let's face it, it was pretty bad, dude. Pretty bad. However, I don't think these are going to change his problem. He can't top lane right now because he has a lot of really bad matchups, and then late game in the middle of a team fight, he can't even keep his passive up. If he does if he doesn't hit something for about 4 seconds, he's just gonna die and lose his passive, and he just doesn't get it back. And that's his main problem. And he can't jungle because the same reason happens. He can't go from ganking someone, from hitting a camp to ganking someone in the time that he loses his passive, and so he doesn't get to do really dirty dives. So I think they need to change his passive so that there's a lot more leniency on that, and then he might be strong. Otherwise, they need to just give him insane stats, but that's not going to happen.
yeah, a huge problem with Aatrox when team fighting was you can't get your passive up, and you you can get it up now because the change. This isn't even my final form. I revive him from passive. Aatrox now is a full blood well. That's nice. It does help him, but it doesn't compensate for the times before he has the first death. It just isn't enough. And like, there's no reason to play Aatrox if you're trying to like duel or split push or be like a lifesteal person when there's people like Fiora and other carry top laners. He just doesn't compete with them.
Yeah. Then we'll move on to Cho'Gath.
So this Cho'Gath buff, you gain 20 health per stack, and you can now get more stacks from minions in small monster camps. This really doesn't do anything for him at all. This has never been his problem. He has terrible matchups in top lane, in mid lane, and by really any ADC, he just gets kited out to death. Other top laners don't have this problem, and Cho'Gath's the only one that has a problem with this. These are just meaningless buffs that will never do anything for him.
Yep, I agree. This doesn't start taking a place effect until level 11. Even then, it's really minor. At level 16, him having one extra camp off of minions, one extra stack off of minions and monster camps makes it nice. However, again, it still is really lackluster. He only gets 200 extra health with 10 stacks, which is still really minor. That's about 500 gold worth of stats, which just like for an ultimate, like 500 more gold than what it was before, and that's just like really lackluster. And moving on to Fiddlesticks. So the first thing is the Terrify range, and the Terrify range is really nice, having a longer range. However, you can't just Terrify Drain, or they'll just walk right outside of your Drain, depending on the way they were facing and everything, just how fairs work. And then, as I keep saying, XD. The drain being able to so the drain now, if you kill the target of the drain, it the remaining duration is applied to the cooldown. So like if you kill the small Krug or whatever, then it applies the rest of the rest of the drain duration on the cooldown, so you have it back up so that you can use it on the next Krug. This makes his clears nicer, however, they're still really horrid. He is not able to clear most of the jungle very well. He only really clears Gromp red and blue very well. Wolves are kind of okay at the moment. And this makes Raptors and Krugs a little better. However, like, if you go to clear Raptors with this and you don't have blue, I'm pretty sure you lose all of your mana. So if they give it maybe some mana refund, that would help him a lot more. This is barely any of Fiddlesticks's problem being able to clear the jungle. Even with these changes, he's not going to compete with any other AP jungler. Brand jungle probably still out jungles him. And then he just doesn't have good gank paths. He's very reliant on using blasting cones, which that's just too long to be able to gank somewhere if you have to gank somewhere using a blasting cone, or you have to ult flash in somewhere, and again, like, that's good, that's a good way to initiate, but that's a lot of resources to use on a gank that, like a blasting plant, takes a lot of time to come back up. And inside of later on team fights, like, he still has the problem of, against decent players, they're just going to ward up. He needs way too much vision control to be able to do the fiddlestick thing. But even then, the players are going to know, okay, I just can't walk near this wall, or Fiddlesticks is going to jump over. Do you have anything to add to that banter?
Yeah, so a thing about the Q Terrify range, as Ben mentioned before, you can't get the, like, at max range Terrify Drain, you can't get that combo off anymore. Because Drain range is 575. It's the same exact range as Terrify now. So as soon as you Terrify them, you don't have enough time with the animation that does to insta do it. So this could be, if you don't like, if you're always going for a max range Terrify, this could become a problem for you, and like, you won't be able to get drains off. But it becomes nicer for ganking because you get the Terrify off from far distance, and then the team can follow up, but you can't follow up exactly from its max range.
It does make he in some situations it will be beneficial, like chasing kills. And now on to the Gnar changes.
So Gnar changed to have his health per second in his mini and mega the same amount. So it became a buff for the mini form and enough for the mega form. But overall, this is a buff to Gnar because most of the game you are in the, like, most of the lane phase and most of the game you're in the mini form. You won't be getting you be getting more health per second overall rather than the old 2.5, which was 2 less than what it is currently. So this can come for a stronger laning phase for Gnar, with him be able to sustain a bit longer. That, like, matches him up with other champions. And then the also other change is Gnar can now Q another spell during E. This is a decently nice buff to him for team fighting. When you go in Mega, you jump in, you can, as soon as you jump in, you can press R. It goes off a lot faster now, makes it a lot more consistent. It catches the team off guard. This could possibly see him be played a bit more in the top lane, but I don't know if it's quite enough to make him be played.
Yeah. To add to that, it's, if I recall correctly, it's a little under a potion for the first 5-6 levels in lane, and extra amount of sustain, which is pretty huge for a lot of Gnar matchups because a lot of them are very reliant on him outplaying inside of the mini Gnar, and working on getting an advantage. And just trades in general were starting to become very harsh for him inside of mini Gnar, because he would lose so much HP and he wouldn't be able to regain it back without slipping into Mega, which means he can no longer poke people out. With that said, I don't think this pushes Gnar into the meta, but with some meta changes in the future, especially the fact that we're so close to a mid-season update with tanks coming back. Would not tanks coming back with the tank reworks. This may push Gnar into top tier meta. I don't think this does yet. I think there's too many tanks that he struggles against. Specifically, tanks like Nautilus are just no fun to lane as Gnar because he just shoves you in. He out damages you until you go mega, and then you're just wet noodle fighting each other and hoping that your jungler ganks. And then the carry champions that he has to fight against. The Gnar vs Rumble matchup is like it's not easy for either person. If either one gets a lead, it's very easy for it to snowball out of control. And then have fun laning against Jace. Like you just that's just not fun at all. Laning versus Jace as anyone. Yeah. And then this misfortune. So this misfortune change is nice. It's a little bit of extra damage for the Q. They add 20 damage at rank 5, and they add an extra 0.15 total attack damage, which is really nice. However, this doesn't change the fact that they're trying to force her into being a crit 80 carry because she's so strong as a caster 80 carry that they don't want her to just be able to auto Q one shot people or just be an ult bot. But unfortunately, that's the life of Misfortune right now, is she's just an ult bot because she's not going to build crit because she's not an auto based. So adding the extra range like on rapid fire cannon doesn't really do anything. However, with that said, Misfortune support is still in a decent spot. She just plays pure shred, so not having a brief pause after you use Q or E is a really large buff to MF support, in my opinion. And then
it helps with some of her losing matchups. The brief pause, like, because now she won't take harass. Like, let's say she's going against Karma, Karma no longer gets off a free Q. You now have time to dodge it, and you take a lot less damage in lane, and you're able to dish out a lot more damage. And then going back to the Q, playing critical with problems in the team now.
Banter, you've turned into a robot.
Hello? Is this better?
Yeah, it's better now. NA Productions, lol.
Yeah, NA Production, you know me. But the damage on the Q is just going to be like absolutely stupid in late game 6 items if you crit. Like, they want to remove her from being like an alt bot or just an auto Q. This will basically win. Like, if you Q someone and then it goes onto the backline and just crits them, that's like 90% of the health. Not 90%, but like 40% of the health. And that's just basically a one team fight there if your team plays it well and doesn't make mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on the Orianna.
The line of ball change, which is if ally dies while holding the ball, it now drops in place rather than return to Orianna. That could be it's in some situations it's a nerf, some situations it's a buff, but overall I think it's a buff. For the main reason this is a buff is for when you're just using it as a ball delivery system. Let's say you have a Jarvan on your team or a Shen or a Malphite. They go in and they for some reason get instantly you can still ult if you're like 2 seconds off cooldown for ult, or if you're just delayed reaction and didn't expect them to go in. You now have time to get the ult off.
Yep. That's pretty much all it is. It's a nice change. Sometimes it's like might trigger people. Some other times, when you're getting chased down and the ball doesn't return to you because the target you had it on kills. So, you're not able to kill that Talon that's chasing you down because it takes your QW takes longer to hit than if it was on you. That's unlucky. But overall, I think most situations it's going to end up being a buff. On to Quinn. So they changed it so Quinn had the scaling on her attacks on her W attack speed is a lot more when it procs Harrier. It scales from 20 to 80% now, which is really huge in 1v1 scenarios where she's split pushing, because this means that it, when she's 1v1ing that person, especially against a tank, that's so much more damage output. And then they nerfed her R Sky Strike damage. That the Sky Strike damage is when she uses an auto attack, or she swaps out of R, or she E's onto somebody, or she Qs someone from R. It causes it causes a circle, and it just does a lot of damage. I don't think this is Quinn's problem at all. I think the Harrier damage itself needs to be nerfed, but this is still a nice change, because it means that she she doesn't kill tanks as easily as before, but she still overkill Squishy with her combo, auto Q, E auto, and it's like you just did 250% of any Squishy's HP. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Banter.
Yeah, the buff basically helps her. The attack speed buff. She's always been able to one-shot squishies and just destroy them if she's even or ahead, and that obviously is still going to be the case even with attack damage nerf. That's never going to be the point that's killing them. But this helps her deal with tanks a lot better,
Yeah,
because now
yeah.
you're getting like over the span where you usually get 5 auto attacks off, you're probably getting like 8 or 9 now, and just adding so much damage.
Yeah. The auto attack speed makes her kill tanks better, but the R damage makes it so she doesn't kill a tank as quickly. Is what I was trying to say, because I know someone brought that up in Twitch chat. And on to Varus, Banter.
Yeah, so the change is basically cooldown refund on Blight proc, 4 seconds scaling down with clear reduction, now just 4 seconds flat. This is trying to like not make Varus the super oppressive Q bot one shot and like or half health in like the back line 90% of the time without any counterplay.
Yeah,
And then
yeah. Last patch, that's what they were trying to remove. And
yeah,
they didn't want his Q cooldown to be dropping below the 4 seconds, because they didn't want him to be turning into a turret again, but just because he auto attacks. This is very large nerfs to lethality. It was very large nerfs to lethality Varus. However, some people still played him and had good success. But this means that attack speed, auto attacking on Varus becomes variation is very, very strong, because he still kills squishies really well with his Q from a long distance, but with the Q change, the passive changes they did quite a while back, where he gains attack speed when he procs the blight, and then the fact that his when he with the last patch changes where they made it so that when he procs blight, the cooldown drops even lower. Added onto this so that it can drop below 4 seconds. Now it means that he can kill tanks really, really well. I also think that this is really good because with Lulu and Kog'Maw both becoming very prominent right now, specifically Kog'Maw Varus deals with Kog'Maw very well for most of the game, and he lanes pretty well against Lulu because he can match her poke, and he can beat her in a lot of all-ins.
yeah, Varus is kind of stopping the squishy like hyper carries or not hyper carries, but like late game carries that are just gonna solo carry game from breaking out into the meta. Because Varus is always going to be a threat to them. Where if he got nerfed more, like it was his damage on his Q, and they just like gutted that, that would make Lulu, Twitch, and Kog'Maw just become basically unstoppable. And like you could just ban one champion and you would be fine in almost every matchup.
Yep. Um, and then back up to the Galio changes. So I really like the Galio rework. He has a really strong kit at the moment, and because of that kit, I think he'll be able to see good competitive play sometime in the near future, and I think he'll see a lot of solo queue play with good success. I think that he's going to need to be nerfed because I have it open in a wiki right now. I
Yeah,
don't think
his
you can see it
bases
as
are
well.
just way too.
His base stats are insane right now. His W has a 40% damage reduction. It drops down to a 7.2 second cooldown. It has a 2 second channel, and it can't the damage reduction can't be stopped by CC during the channel.
Yeah,
So he gets 40%, and then for every 100 MR, he gets 8%. So in very early fights, he's going to be having 48% damage reduction. In later fights, he's going to be having 56 or even 64% damage reduction. I don't think he'll be hitting 64 very often because 300 magic resist is very hard to hit. I think that's only going to happen when they have like 4 APs, 3 AP champions that are very hard to deal with. So he just keeps stacking MR. His his passive is really insane. The damage right now. I don't know how well you guys are seeing it. Let's look. Okay, yeah, you guys see more than enough. That's fine. Um, but yeah, his baseline stats, he has a lot of damage. He's very tanky. I think we'll be seeing him as he's a very strong secondary diver. So if you get something like a Shen or even like a Shaco that just like he jumps in invisible and Galio follows him, you I think he works really well with a Shen or a Vi, something that dives and he jumps in, gives them a massive damage reduction off of his ult until he gets there. He's able to knock people up. Something like a Vi that's able to lock people down long enough that he can ult them and knock them up is really, really huge. Other than that, I think he'll be played mainly top and mid. If he's played jungle or support, it's mainly because it's like a Camille situation where his kit is they're playing him just for his kit. I think when he's played top, I think he'll see a lot more play in top than he'll see mid. Mid is more of into specific champions, where they just play him and he just something like a Fizz that you just don't want to die to or something like that, and then top lane you run him into he works really well into a lot of the AP tanks, especially because he has maximum health damage on his Q, and then his passive still is a lot of damage. He works really well into something like Nautilus, and then
yeah,
and it's hard for him to jungle because he's not able to go over walls. But and maybe his ult's enough to make up for it, but it has a very large cooldown. So it probably won't. I think more often when he's playing mid, they'll be running a double or a triple tank comp where they just dive super hard. So you get like a Shen, a Vi, a Galio, and the enemy or a Poppy or that kind of deal, and their backline's just never going to live a fight. Do you have anything to add, Banter?
yeah. So about his alt, there's one thing that I really like that's not, it's not good for him, but nice because he's just has too many good things about him is that where he ults is not where it's where the champion was when he ulted. It
Hmm.
has a 1 second channel, so it probably won't move too much, but if they're using a high mobility spell like an Ari ult or like Shackle Q or something like that, he won't be exactly on them, and it could mess up with the range of like the knockup and be a bit of annoyance if you guys can't coordinate it well with your team. And then also back to the W, his damage reduction. Q in
You're
case
a
you don't think you
robot
can.
again, Banter. You keep going in
Oh,
and out.
why?
NA Productions XD.
It really is. But if you're going back to W, the damage reduction isn't the only part about it. You also get a shield passively that is based off of maximum health.
And it turns it into
From
maximum magic damage, and it's 8 to 23% of your maximum health.
that's that's a too good of ability. His W is just shouldn't have that much overloaded stats on probably a 10. It's a 10-second cooldown for the active, and the passive comes up every 12 seconds.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The yeah, exactly. Late game, assuming he has 3.5 to 4,000 HP, this is approximately an 800 to 850 magic damage shield, and that's really huge. That I don't think we have anything else to say about Galio. So we'll move down to the
Warlords.
yeah, the Warlords change, which is you.
Yeah. So the Warlord change is a huge buff to Warlords from. It has a stronger early game, so now at level 1 you don't have a measly 1% life, so it does basically nothing. You have a 3%, it doesn't do too much, but it's a bit nicer, you're getting a bit more health back. But now it goes up to 40%, but the big thing about it is that you can see this still pushing for crit instead of the lethality meta, is that when a Warlord's Bloodlust shot crits, the heal is doubled, or it's further increased by the crit damage modifiers. So you're basically going to be getting a lot more late game health than you would normally, and you're just going to be doing like a huge amount of damage. So if you're playing Yasuo or something like that, and you have the consistent crits, that's just going to be too much health you're getting back with the movement speed while doing a really good amount of damage with the crits.
Yep. Um, yeah, like you said, these are huge buffs to Yasuo without buffing Yasuo himself. These are really good on a lot of the kiting 80 carries that were starting to take it. This is really good on attack speed Varus. This is really good for Ashe. This could be good for Jhin, especially with the Deathfire nerfs. I think that with this Warlords being buffed on top of the change to it, I think that it will be common to take this on Jhin in a lot of situations, especially with building a lot of lethality on Jhin falling off, so you don't just get your edge of knife XD edge of night safe shield safety. So you need something to help make up for it. When you mix this in with a crit on Jhin, this gets really, really disgusting because every time he crits, he gets movement speed. So if he crits, he gets a really big heal, and then he gets movement speed off of Warlords and this. The biggest change to this is that when somebody crits with Warlords, the heal also crits. So, I'm pretty certain that this applies to crit amplifiers too. Yes, crit modifiers. Yep, that's what it says. So if when you have your Infinity Edge and somebody crits, if you had something that was going to heal 100 damage, it would now heal 250, and that's really insane. But the late game only loses 10%, and that's not actually that big. Most most 80 champions, this is only losing about 25 of a heal, 25 HP. So most champions are going to want this. And then most of the champions that wanted Fervor anyways weren't going to be taking this in most scenarios, because there's something like a Lucian that where they need to have their Fervor for their damage. But there are some scenarios where, some scenarios of Fervor 80 carries taking this because they have a lot of divers. Yeah, and then
Yep.
the Reds magic resist is down. This is it's really down at lower levels. Later on, it starts to go back up more. This is really nice for a lot of AP junglers, because most AP junglers or tank magic based junglers are having a hard time being able to clear a lot of the jungle. These are really nice buffs for Amumu and Zac and Evelynn and Elise. Potentially even good for Fiddlesticks. It's good for most of those AP junglers, but it's not enough to make a large difference. I think this is really, really good for Elise. She doesn't struggle with red, but this should increase her clear speed by like 2 to 3 seconds or so, maybe even a little more on her first clear of red, which means that she's able to be getting ganking sooner. She's not going to lose as many spiders sometimes. Like, she's not going to have to kite it as hard with, so that she can get as many spiders back and lose as much mana if she doesn't have blue already. And I think the biggest benefactor for this are going to be Elise and the magic-based tanks.
Yep.
And then there's, in the bug fixes, there's only 2 that we wanted to talk about. The rest of them are pretty small. So which one do you want to take, Banter?
I'll take the first one. So the fixed bug causing victors are Chaos Storm, the Fizzle, and Death. This became relevant like 2 or 3 patches ago. I don't know exactly, but basically when he would die, his ult would no longer continue on. It'd usually stay there and continue doing damage, but now it doesn't, and that is finally fixed. This is a pretty nice buff or not buff, but getting him back to where he was before. This isn't gonna make him like a top tier pick. He's in a good spot right now, but it's just gonna be nice for him, because there's sometimes where you would die and your ult would now just fizz out, and it changes from getting 300 gold and getting 0 gold.
Yep. And this at the same time, I don't think it pushes him into meta. It might potentially push him into lower tiers of meta in that this means that there's some matchups on people that play Victor a lot that you're more willing to take him. But Victor still suffers from the problem in solo queue that you're playing Victor and you're very team reliant, and the fact that he has a lot of hard matchups inside of the meta right now. And then the next one that I wanted to talk about is they changed the Illaoi. She had a really cool animation cancel. Are they even able to see this? Let's see. Yeah, they should. Illaoi, she had a really cool animation cancel where you could use W and E so that you would hit them pretty much at the same time. And that was really cool. It was not easy to do at all. I personally don't like that this is removed, because I don't like when most animation cancels are removed, because they're very cool things, and this wasn't really anything that changed a lot. It meant that she could burst people a little quicker, but Illaoi already has such a hard time right now that I don't know why they're putting her in such a bad spot already, and then they remove an animation cancel that was recently discovered. I think that they needed to be doing something to to compensate for removing this, because this made quite a big difference in many lanes, especially because it meant that it was very undodgeable. So this is pretty much all we have to say. Do you guys have any questions? If so, just put them in the Twitch chat, or message Banter or I on Discord, or at us in Random or General or somewhere. We'll leave the stream open for a couple minutes so that you can ask any questions that you might have.
Actually, one more thing with the Alawi change. It's kind of like when they removed the cast, the backwards alt and flash. A lot of people were mad about that because they don't like it when you remove something that's hard to do mechanically. Like they shouldn't be punishing good play. They should be punishing hard, like easier play, and something like that that's hard to do. They shouldn't be removing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then like the Casio R ult specifically was very, very hard to do. There were so many people that failed it at high level play. Like, Faker was one of the only very few people that could consistently pull it off, and there were a couple other Cassiopeia players that could inside of LCK. Yeah. I don't know. Don't see anybody asking questions yet, and I don't see anyone in general. So, but I'll leave stuff open just for another minute or so. Oh, one of the bug fixes that I forgot about is that Ari's charm. When you charm someone during a dash, they're no longer able to cast spells during the dash. So there aren't very many spells that you can cast stuff during the dash. But this is something like, I believe this affects Kha'Zix's Q mid-air, or Tristana ult mid-air. So that's pretty nice for Ari too. Other than that, I don't think there were a lot of bug fixes that were very very important.
Yeah, and also, but another dash would be the Camille, where you E and then W. That also now,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
or I actually, I'm not positive. I haven't really tested this out. If it may cancel double E now, which before you could still do the double E on Camille, even if you got charmed in the first E, but
Yep.
it may cancel that now.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna turn the stream off now because nobody's asking questions. I'll put our Discord names in our Discord in chat that you can add us with, or search for us to message if you have any questions about meta. I don't think this patch specifically changes a lot of meta. There were a lot of really nice buffs to a lot of champions. Most of them don't make a difference, but some of them were really nice to start seeing in that direction. And I personally like seeing more champions get buffed. I think there's still quite a few champions left that need buffs to push them over, and I would like to see some buffs that actually address actual problems, like Cho'Gath or something, like addressing some of his real problems. But it's really nice to see not 20 champions and items getting nerfed, but leaving 3 random champions up for forever, or just deciding for no reason that you want to nerf Rengar again, or decide that you want to take LeBlanc so far behind the shed because she's beat too many kids up that you just chop all of her arms off. But I think that was really nice. So thank you for joining us on our patch rundown. Have a nice night, y'all.
See you.